I've set up 2 pieces ready to start. They're both honeysuckle. It's a little difficult to show them both side by side because they're really too big for that. But the plan is to try and work on the early stages of each one, and then the intermediate stages and so on, so they finish roughly about the same time. I'm also trying out a new paper, so this might be a mistake to try it out on 2 large pieces both at the same time. If the paper doesn't work well, it'll be a fiasco, but if it works well, it'll be great. It's quite thick and heavy, so it should cope well. It's got a texture. I don't know if I can get the camera to focus on the texture. Possibly you can see it there, sort of like a canvas type texture. And I've done a few experiments just to see how it reacted to having the tape stuck on it, and how it reacted to having the tape peeled off it, and some pigment rubbed into it, some of the oil pastels and thinner rubbed into it, to see how it copes, and it seems to be all right. So here we go. What I've done is select some colours that I think will blend to make the colours that I need, or are actually going to go on the paper direct without any alteration, and will make, be the colour exactly as I need it. It's a good idea to do this because, and then label them so you can find the ones you're looking for. It saves putting a mark on the paper and then thinking that is a really dreadful colour, it really doesn't work there. Papers do not like being messed around with over much, so it's better to avoid adding colours that really don't work. You can scrape back, you can mop off, but some pigments stain, and however much you do, they will still be there, and then you're working over the top of them. So this helps avoid a lot of hassle later in the painting. You can see I've gone down, and there's some surprising colours in honeysuckle. These and these are for the more yellowy honeysuckles, and the reddish ones are more this end. And there's a number of greens in both. So hopefully this will now set me in good stead for the next stage. So I've now got the whole surface covered in the basic colour. They need adjusting, all of them will need adjusting. This new paper is much more hungry for pigment. You can't do a light scribble and then blend it in. You have to go in with quite a lot of pigment, which has been an interesting learning curve. I've now got another one, the reverse image, in darker colours, darker pinks and things, to do on the other sheet. So I'm going to start by laying in the base layer of that. So I said at the start of this, I've started 2 paintings, and you can see them beginning to develop now. I don't paint with them both on the table at the same time because they're so big, but I'm trying to bring them along at about the same rate so that I can make sure that they would be a matching pair if somebody wanted to buy them that way. I quite like to keep the 2 together, really. The new paper is interesting to work with. It's, how can I describe it? It's quite pigment hungry. You can see the grain there, sort of a canvas type grain, which is quite nice. But a number of the techniques that I used on the other paper don't work so well on here, so I'm having to adapt as I go along. But it's not too bad. It's coming along. And I said at the beginning that starting 2 large pieces on new paper that I've never used before could be a fiasco. I think it's probably not. But there's a way to go yet. This is the one that I think could be the most difficult. The colours need to be cooled quite a lot in some areas, and that's going to be interesting. This one, I'm really kind of pleased. You see the water droplets there. I do love painting water droplets, and they've come out really well on this one. And I'm trying to decide whether to add them onto this one, but I don't want to add them in just for the sake of it, because I think it could look clumsy. So we shall see. But I want to finish getting the background a little bit, particularly on this one, this area here. I'm not happy with that. I want to get the background sort of not exactly finished, but nearly there, because once I start working on the foreground, I don't want to end up smudging it. And there are 1 or 2 areas where I've had to, as you can see, I've had to take colour out where it's gone over, and I want to make sure that when I put the foreground on, I'm not having to redo it. But I might have to make minor adjustments to the background once the foreground's in, just to make sure the balance is there. But it's getting there. I need to work on this area a little bit, and this area here. And there's actually supposed to be a water droplet in there, which is going to be interesting to put that one in. We'll see how that works. And some of these water droplets, they're going to be quite hard on this pale surface to get the level of contrast right so that they don't look like speckles. I'm beginning to wonder whether it was such a bright idea to put quite so many in, but that's slightly less than my photograph had. So we shall see. Okay, well these two pieces are beginning to come on fairly well, as I think you can see from the overview. One thing that isn't working quite right at the moment is if I'm going to present them as a pair, it doesn't show as much on the camera, but when I'm looking at it under studio lighting, there's a slight difference between this side and this side in terms of colour. So there's more dark on this side, so I'm just going to bring across here and here and perhaps here some slightly darker elements from here, just to blend that as a pair so that they work. I've started putting some of the raindrops, which seem to be coming out quite well, and then the next stage on this one will be to work on the main petal of the flower, and this one's got loads of work to do on it. I need to start working on these areas on this one, but generally they're coming on fairly well, so I'm quite pleased with them so far. And that's always a problem, because you get to the point where you're pleased with them and then you think, oh gosh, if I do this or that needs doing, is it going to ruin it? Am I going to be able to pull that off? And you start to get a bit hesitant because you don't want to spoil what you've already done. But it's either be bold or leave them half finished. So here's to being bold. one of the things I've been really struggling with this particular honeysuckle is the shadows and the colours, because they are not at all what you might expect. And as you can see, I'm a long way from being close to the photos. Whilst I don't want to slavishly copy the photo, I've already left bits out, and to simplify it and give prominence to these two particular trumpets. I decided in the end it would help if, to start with, I copied the hues and tones of the photo, and then I can adjust it so that it looks right as a composition and as a picture. So one way of doing that is to compare, and I had a feeling that I'd made this shadow here way too pale, and I don't know if that's picking up on camera. Let's see if I can get it to look in a bit closer. You can see there's a huge difference, and every time I darken up this shadow I look at it and I think, oh, it's too dark, and I scrape it off again, but actually it's not dark enough. So I'm going to have a go at doing that, looking at the colour through a white background. So this is just a hole punched in a piece of white paper. It's quite useful because it takes away all the other distractions, so I'm hoping that will help.